Y'all hear me okay?
Leave that there so it's easier for you?
Sure. I'm not polished enough to be able to speak without...
Right there. And I'll just introduce you. That sound good? Why don't you stand right behind me? Everybody can... Perfect.
Want us to go right at 11?
Yes.
Yes?
I'm just not sure if she's going to have to... Okay, she's done.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Congressman Mike Levin. I'm honored to represent the 49th District, which includes here in Encinitas. We recently announced exciting news. We have finally secured significant federal funding to help secure coastal bluffs in our community and to prevent tragedies experienced here at Grandview Beach last year. Damage reduction project. The primary purpose of this project is to stabilize tall bluffs that erode due to high energy storm of the land. Require an additional $1.5 million in federal funding, and we will fight just as hard to secure that funding. Needed to complete the project, which is estimated to cost about $30 million initially and approximately and 50% of all remaining federal funding for the sand corridor, known as the Low Sand Corridor, the tracks that run immediately adjacent to much of our district, including the San Clemente coast. The project is designed to protect the tracks while also protecting roads, buildings, and other infrastructure, as well as maintaining recreational use of the beach. The $505,000 allocated by the Army Corps represents the full federal funding needed to complete the PED phase for the San Mayor Edson, Mayor Blakespear, who can't be with us, Deputy Mayor Hinsey, and the Army Corps for all of their partnership and their dedication on this issue, as well as Senators Feinstein and Harris. And of course, I am incredibly grateful for everything that Dr. Pat Davis has done to help ensure that nobody else experiences the loss that he did. His perseverance following such an incredible loss is inspiring, and his strength is an example for all of us. Dr. Davis and I went to the President's latest State of the Union address so that we could highlight how important it is that we receive this funding for our community. And just days later, we got the news that this funding was finally on its way. I'll do everything possible that I can to ensure that Julie, Annie, and Elizabeth were not lost in vain. I'll say it again, there's much more that needs to be done, more funding that needs to come from Washington and elsewhere to see these projects through. Davis.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Here in memory of my wife, Julie, my daughter, Annie, and Elizabeth. Bear with me, please. It was only the second accident. You know, I believe sand replenishment to get worse in our Julie, Annie, and Elizabeth happened 8 months ago. There have been numerous feet. To make people's attention, things like people died here. I think that our beaches need to be closed to families at high tide or when there is are with everyone officials that's here today to make our beaches
project finally advance, and we look forward to working together. Congressman Levin, on behalf of the residents, visitors, shorebirds, and other natural habitat that enjoy our beautiful, fragile coastline,
and need us extend a heartfelt thanks to our Representative Levin, who has brought this project further than anybody has had the ability to yet. So we are so grateful for your leadership on that. So this $400,000 is really key because it moves this project from the studying phase into the design phase, and we would not have been able to have that happen without the help of the federal government. So this $400,000, as Congressman Levin stated, will unlock the funds that we have put aside over the last 17 years to provide the local match that's necessary to make sure that we have some skin in this game too. So I was in 3rd grade when the investigations for this study began, and since then all of the residents and the visitors to our beautiful beach town have been waiting for the day when we can put more sand on the beach and restore the historic sand levels that we loved about Encinitas in years gone. So the project that will offer multi-benefits, not limited to the recreation of habitat for shorebirds, for invertebrates, including clams and crabs and all the things that are so important to the foundation of our ecology. It will also provide a wider recreational space, which will allow for increased public safety, and it will limit the damage from storms and swells and wind and wave action that has eroded our bluffs over the years. So for that, we can look forward to wider beaches and more space for everybody to enjoy themselves. With that, I would like to thank Jamie Timberlake, who's here today, and she has done an amazing job of overseeing this program and working with our partners in the city of Solana Beach. I'd also like to thank our senators, Harris and Feinstein, for their support of this project, and I will look forward to seeing the sand actually delivered on our beach.
Thank you, Congressman. Senator Feinstein asked me to deliver remarks on her behalf. Last August, we experienced a great tragedy when the cliffs here at Grandview Beach collapsed, killing 3 people and injuring 2 more. Dr. Davis, the senator asked me to again express her deepest condolences for the loss of your wife, Julie, daughter Annie, and sister-in-law, Elizabeth. Unfortunately, this wasn't an isolated incident. Cliff collapses have occurred along the Southern California coastline for years, with additional fatal accidents as recently as 2008. The natural erosion of the cliffs is troubling enough. However, as sea levels continue to rise due to climate change, it's imperative we take steps now to stabilize the cliffs to protect the public. This is why Senator Feinstein has worked with Congressman Levin and other House partners to secure funding to address the problem. She pressed the Army Corps of Engineers to prioritize the funding for the Solana Beach Encinitas Coastal Shore Protection Project in this year's work plan. We learned earlier this month that the Army Corps will allocate $400,000 for the project. That is the full amount we requested for the project's first year. This funding, along with local contributions from the city of Solana Beach and Encinitas, will launch efforts to stabilize these cliffs. However, this is only the first tranche of what will hopefully be more funding in the near future. As the top Democrat on the Appropriations Subcommittee on Energy and Water, Senator Feinstein was able to secure $4 million for shoreline protection projects in this year's government funding bill, and she is working to secure even more funding in next year's bill to ensure this project can be completed. Southern California families should be able to enjoy the beach free of fear that cliffs could collapse. We'll do all we can to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. very much.
Senator Feinstein has been just a great partner in all this, as has Senator Harris. We're very grateful for their help. We're going to need a lot more of it. So with that, I'd love to invite any of you to ask questions of any of us up here. Fire away. Yes, sir.
I think that you're right, Brad, that it's a very complicated relationship at times. I that it's possible, but it's going to take some very close partnership between individual cities and the commissioners and the commission staff.
Congressman, what does this project actually look like? I mean, you mentioned the funding, but what is it actually going to look like, and when will something actually be built?
So Kelly actually was on the news this morning and did a really good job of explaining it. There's definitely going to be a sand replenishment component of it, but perhaps other things will be necessary as well. And that's what this planning, engineering, and design phase is really designed or is supposed to determine. What will happen is over the course of the next couple of years, this year and next year, they will work together with local stakeholders and determine the best path forward. When they last evaluated, when the determination was made about the cost, that was back in 2014, and they determined that initially $30 million would be needed for the basic sand replenishment and bluff protection, bluff stabilization. And that will get us about 5 years to 10 years worth of bluff stabilization, but then every 5 to 10 years thereafter there needs to be a reassessment, a reanalysis. That's where that $130 million figure came in. And the way that the federal cost share works, there's a federal cost share for the PED phase, and the cities have been waiting a long time. I think I heard 17 years is what I've heard for this initial federal funding for the PED. Once that happens, then we're going to be requesting the $30 million, of which 65% will come from the federal government. And then thereafter, 50% of all additional funds every 5 to 10 years thereafter will come from the federal government, and it will be matched dollar for dollar by other funding sources. Kelly, did you want to, you gave a great description this morning. Did you want to give it again?
Which part was it?
Specifically talking about the different aspects of what we might try to do.
Yeah, I think that just to reiterate what Representative Levin said, that we're moving into the planning and engineering design phase, and so we have the concepts pretty clear.
Look like when, that's basically my question, so I can just say, like, this is what it contains.
Yeah. Well, to the best of my understanding, and Jamie and Serena are both here that might be able to answer it, but
What are the impacts? So
I'm going to finish answering this question. So to the best of my understanding, it looks like a very wide beach. It looks like 25 feet, sometimes 50 feet. But as we know, the beach is always dynamic. It's always changing in its width depending on the day.
Thanks, Dan.
So being that we have less sand than we have, in generations before, and so there's a really critical little skinny habitat here that's the intertidal area, and so a lot of the species that live in the reef, they will have to move further out because there will be more sand that kind of encroaches on the reef habitat that they're used to living in right now. That's one of the impacts. Benefits are that there's more sand for the beach birds, for the shore birds, for
I don't believe that we are, but I think there's still a year or two to determine exactly what we move forward on. I know that exactly what Kelly just said. Sand replenishment is a big part of it. Making sure, obviously, that we are mindful of habitat protection, of environmental issues as we move forward. That's the balance, making sure that we're
budget proposal?
The funding was part of the last year's appropriations of $905,000 specifically for these two projects for the PED, $400,000 here, $505,000 for San Clemente, and total expected cost of this project in its initial years, of which but $130 million. So the initial $30 million, 65% would come from the federal government, and then every 5 to 10 years thereafter, the assessment and then the federal.
From the state, you mentioned local dollars are being matched.
Government officials are going to work tirelessly with Sacramento to try to bring any state funds as well. Obviously, my jurisdiction's on the federal level, but I know that they're going to be tireless. The involvement of the Coastal Commission. That being said, Steve Padilla on the Coastal Commission. So we'll just keep having those conversations in the next couple of weeks. The engineers determine exactly what's needed. We want to make sure that we've got the federal. Yes, sir.
How is the state and local government and the Coastal Commission going to help the local landowners and bluff owners to stabilize and improve the bluff?
Great question. Federal level, so that's not my piece. Any local leaders want to talk about that?
Well, I think as we all know, the conversation around seawalls is a non-starter for the Coastal Commission unless it's in an emergency situation, and even then it's temporary. So the hope of this project is that we lessen the need for seawalls that property owners feel by this sand replenishment program.
Congressman, that $30 million
Yes, sir.
you gave, how many years does that project?
5 to 10.
Okay.
Time for one more? Anybody? Anybody? Going once? Going twice? All right, well,
When does the estimation start? When is the work starting on the estimation?
I would hope right away. I know that we'll be having those discussions. In fact, one of our next steps is for us all to sit down, not at a press conference, but just around a conference room table and discuss exactly what needs to happen next. And it's similar in that regard to the work that we're doing down at the Tijuana River Valley, making sure that the $300 million that was in the USMCA trade deal gets allocated quickly. Just the same, we're working very closely with the Army Corps on this project to make sure that the funds go to where they're supposed to go as quickly as they can. Thank you all very much.
I just wanted to mention, in answer to a couple of the questions, that there was a question of what is this going to look like, and I think that for any of the beachgoers that year after year because, as we know, there's tidal action. It pulls that sand out, it brings it back every year. And what we've seen just from those small amounts of sand that we got from San Elijo is that it did come back, that it did replenish it, that we do have higher levels. And as there's two problems with bluffs, and one is water that's coming down and eroding them from the top, but the other very important issue is wave action. So getting those waves further away from the toe of the bluff is vitally important. The other question is on board and behind this project as well.
So you, just very quickly, you mentioned something, and that is the runoff. Plan to address the runoff.
Working with the city of Del Mar about runoff and identifying, say bluff collapse in Del Mar around the transit line, and it's an important issue, and there's always
We're scheduling it. 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know when. I wake up.
Sure, bye. Okay. Oh, gosh. Oh, that was me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it was. Oh,
About
thank
permitting?
you. Yeah. It was. I think it was one of the other reporters. I was just trying to figure out what this project would look like. I want to know. I want to be able to tell the viewer what this thing is. So that was really my point of clarification.
It's a 50-foot wide berm.
Yeah.
Or a 100-foot wide berm.
And they would put it in the water, or
no,
were
it's like it's on the it spans from the like.
like a wall, right?
It'll
it's
just
like
it's going to be like it literally looks like just a like a mountain.
Okay.
It'll just be stockpiled sand.
Like rocks, maybe, or no?
Just sand.
And it won't go away.
It doesn't go away as fast as it will go away in like 5 years.
I see. That makes sense. All right, let me call in. All right. All right. TOC. So we're missing out on stuff over there by doing this. Hey, Tracy, it's John Horn. How's it going? Yeah. That's fine. Okay, well, I mean, it'd be good to know because they're doing more interviews now. So it'd really be better if we didn't do this. Okay. I mean... Yeah, it's not... I'm going to call James. I'm just going to call him and tell him to float it. I'm not even getting a signal anymore. Let's just go. You want to just go over there? All right, yeah, we can take, yeah, this is BS.
I don't mean just signs like you see here that they're unstable cliffs. I think, people walk right by those, and, they've been looking at those for, I've been going to this beach for almost 40 years, and those don't scare me. Fear. That's a good question. It would be easy for me to not say anything and just to shy away. Believe you me, it'd be a lot easier to not come down here. I came down here about a week ago, and for the first time in 6 months, and it was difficult. But the reason that I'm doing this is because if something happens, or when it happens, because I don't so that